Welcome to This Sustainable Life, the premier community on learning to live sustainably. Are you trying to live sustainably? Me too. Enjoy the process? Me too. To hear heads of government, business, culture, sports, and everywhere also doing it, changing government and corporations. I've been on my journey of environmental sustainability for years. My guests and I have learned and share on sustainable food, sustainable farming, sustainable travel, and more. This podcast shares my results, often opinionated, and world-class guests I lead on how to be more sustainable. You're about to hear an episode originally recorded audio only. You'll hear the original podcast name, Leadership in the Environment, because I focus a lot on leadership. Subscribe, upvote, share, and tell everyone about it. We're growing fast. Now here's the episode.
I had a great scene, as you just said that. Yesterday, all the kids were lined up, the 22 kids. And I said, who wants to quit? Let's call it day 12. They have one last event that's going to take place starting today at around 2 p.m. called the Death Race. Who wants to quit? Who wants to go home? 2 kids stepped forward, which was annoying. I resolved that. But one kid his foot was starting to step forward and he started crying. I mean, he was crying. He was holding back tears, holding himself back from walking forward. And I said, Henry, what's up? And he said, I want to quit, but I don't want to quit, but I want to quit. But I don't want to quit. I want to finish. He couldn't reconcile everything going on, all the emotions. But it's really hard. But I want to quit. And that's what goes through everybody's mind, adult or child, or right. Like we all want to quit because the number one motivation for a human being, the number one thing that motivates us, according to those a lot smarter than me, is the avoidance of discomfort.
Welcome to the award-winning Leadership in the Environment podcast. We guide you to living better by your values. We bring you relevant views on important topics without doom and gloom. We focus on awareness and action. It's about bringing fun, community, and connection to your everyday life. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing and turning on notifications. Let's do this. My guest today is Joe Sena, who started the Spartan Race. I'm sure you've heard of it, or in Tough Mudder, whom they purchased, where you do these obstacle courses and they're very challenging. He also hosts the Spartan Up podcast, which I highly recommend. For those who know about me and my habits of burpees, cold showers, rowing a marathon, picking up garbage daily, and things like that, Joe has made it his mission to bring the joy, the service, the happiness, the resilience, grit, toughness, and all those things to the world, which I'm trying to do too. He's bringing it in a different way. It's more about fun and climbing mountains over stewardship, but I think that there's a lot of overlap between these things. Some people expect that tough means suffering, but I hope that you'll catch what I find at the root of Joe's message, and I believe his life, which is the emotion. I heard fun, connection, playfulness, things like that. It's not just the physical activity that you see someone doing. It's the meaning both behind what they're doing and the meaning that these things create, which is fun, which is connection, which is doing things with people. I happened to catch him while he was running a 2-week program for kids with at least one event called the Death Race. I think maybe the whole thing was called the Death Race. In any case, you'll hear how the kids respond, how the parents respond, how kids in inner cities respond to these challenges that really make life enjoyable and fun and make life worth living. It's not what you think from the outside. The point is it's how we can respond if we choose to act, not just accept what life hands to us. So here's Joe. Welcome to the Leadership in the Environment podcast. This is Joshua Spodek. I'm here with Joe Sena. Joe, how are you doing?
How you doing, Josh? Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. And we were just chatting before. I was listening to actually, I have to say, if people were to pause my podcast right now and listen to Spartan Up for like a whole bunch of episodes, I would not feel bad at all. I mean, there's a lot of podcasts out there and people out there who write books and do TED Talks and things about how to improve your life. And you're living it in an uninhibited way. And you're sharing that, you bring other people who are doing that. I love it.
I'll go even one step further. We're in the midst right now of an impromptu kids camp that we brought. How many kids do we have, Paul? 22 kids? 22 kids we have on the farm right now. And we are kicking their asses in a way that's never been done before. So much so that most of the parents are losing their minds. Phones had to be taken away. These kids are doing some hard shit. And so, yeah, I if we're not doing that, if we're not living the mission, I'm not happy.
Yeah. Okay. So you do Spartan races. And I presume that you're doing that with the kids. You're giving them obstacles and things like that.
Times 10, because the kids can't escape.
Uh-huh.
So like with adults, right? They quit, They give you all kinds of reasons. They got to catch a flight, whatever it is. The kids can't leave. they're stuck here. So we've been able to go. It's really stretched the rubber band.
How many burpees have they done on average so far today?
I would say 500 maybe burpees in the course of the 500 probably. But the bigger thing has been carrying rocks up the mountain. That's been the bigger task during these 2 weeks.
Now, I've heard you say many times how you don't know when life is going to give you these challenges. So be prepared, be resilient, develop these social emotional skills. And in fact, I was watching one of these videos and it was March 10th, 2020. And so I presumably at that point, you'd probably heard of there's a virus out there. And then like suddenly the entire planet gets its ass kicked. And how do you look at what's going on right now? Because I also just read on Reddit, I was on Reddit, and they were talking about like, who else is handling this unhealthily? And there were post after post after post about marijuana, alcohol, masturbating, TV. And I'm like, I'm having this. I was talking to someone yesterday who he's doing a project with a grade school, where he's having them, each summer they have to do something in service. And now they are trapped in. And so they're all complaining that they can't do anything. I'm like, are you joking? There's more need now. There's more to serve.
It's a greatest time to get healthy, to do good, to get stuff done. I mean, these 2 weeks with these kids, I wish I had 500 kids here, 5,000 kids. Like, I'm just putting them through the paces. When would I ever have this time where the world stopped and maybe people are rethinking things? So it's a shame if there's a large part of the population or any part of the population that's using this time in negative ways. Look, if it were me, I mean, you already know my answer, but if it were me and I was the government and I had the ability to shut things down, like I would have shut down liquor stores. I would have mandated that everybody wakes up at 5 a.m. during this pandemic. I would have mandated burpees every day, cold shower. I would have turned hot water off everywhere. We are doing fucking cold showers during the entire pandemic, and just build a little more resiliency and perseverance. I mean, you know all this. Like, I believe perseverance wins over anything, over intelligence, over strength, over anything. Like if you have that mindset of like, I'm just going to get through this, I will adapt and overcome, you win. Can't beat that.
And so I don't want to bring anyone down, but what do you think when you look at the people who are handling this? So they're struggling. And to me, it's like, this is one of the great opportunities. Obviously, I'd rather people weren't dying and suffering from things that they can't outside their control. I believe that you're trying to change our culture. You're trying to bring something in. It's not just one person at a time, because you're doing something much more than just working with one person at a time.
It's my whole passion. It's the reason I wake up in the morning. I think there was a part of my life where I just wanted to go conquer things personally, climb mountains, do this, do that. That was a bit, I just had to find out, am I tough enough? Can I do it? I wanted the reward. I was addicted to that, the adrenaline and the dopamine, right, of doing these crazy things. But now I just feel like we've gotten so soft as a species, certainly in the first world, that it's a public service to try to slap people across the face and wake them up. And problem is, why, Joe? Why would I crawl under barbed wire? Why would I do this? Like, I got Netflix, I got my couch. I don't understand why I would do this. And some people, when the pandemic hit, some people are getting it now. Oh, maybe I should be prepared. Maybe I should be psychologically and physically prepared for any kind of a threat. The ancient Spartans, I'm just going to riff here for a minute. I apologize. But the ancient Spartans, their thing was, we want freedom. But part of that concept wasn't just freedom from like a neighboring threat. Part of that freedom was, I want freedom from disease. I want to be healthy. I want to be fit. I want free. Like, that's how you become free, right? You can't, you're shackled by being unhealthy, by not being a peak performer. So like, it's a shame if you're drowning yourself in alcohol and smoking a bunch of marijuana. My green juice showed up. Hang on. I have my green juice.
You're making me thirsty.
My green juice with my paper straw. I'm very on brand for you right now.
This is only audio, so people don't see that he just showed me a bright green, presumably mostly vegetables, maybe a little bit of fruit, and
lemon and veggies. I don't know. I'm trying to change the world. And it's hard. The kids here, first 3 days, they had phones and they were texting parents. This is crazy. Got to get me out of here. Save me. Come get me. Joe's nuts. This farm, it's too hard. And then the parents started texting my wife. Then my wife started yelling at me. Everybody's going to hate us. These people are not ready for this. This is a different kind of crowd. Joe, we have to send the kids home. And I realized that we have a bigger problem than I thought, right? The kids are upset because they're being asked to be accountable. They're being asked to work hard. Parents are upset because the kids are uncomfortable being accountable and working hard. Like, oh my God, this is a disaster.
He says, pauses, takes a green juice. Oh, I thought you were going to say, and then we realized, take away the phones.
Well, we did take away the phones, but it was actually genius that the phones were around in the beginning because it's really the parents that need the training. Kids are easy. Kids are resilient. After a few days, they're workhorses. They'll just do whatever you tell them to do. Climb the mountain, carry rocks, get in the cold river. It doesn't matter. The crying stopped. The complaining stopped. They have no phone anymore. It's really the parents. Parents are, and I'm a parent, and I get it. I get it. We are wired to protect our children, but there's no real threats like there were. Like, I'm not jumping in front of a lion to protect my kid, or protecting them from freezing by killing a fox and wrapping him or her with the fur. This is protecting from what? From carrying a rock up the mountain? From putting your shoes away? What are we protecting from?
Okay, I'm taking about two things. There's things that you personally do yourself, your physical and mental challenges, and then leading others through these things. And I'm curious what in your heart and in your mind, when you're challenging yourself and there's a part of you that wants to quit and you don't, or when you're walking someone else through or push, I don't know what the right word is, motivating someone else to do it. Of course, there's the immediate feeling of like, oh, I want to quit, but I'm not going to quit, or something like that. But I feel like there's something deeper, like you're changing the world. You're restoring our species, what's the word? Honor or Spartanness?
Resilience.
Resilience.
Yeah. I had a great scene, as you just said that. Yesterday, all the kids were lined up, the 22 kids. And I said, who wants to quit? Because today let's call it day 12. And they have one last event that's going to take place starting today at around 2 p.m. called the Death Race. And who wants to quit? Who wants to go home? 2 kids stepped forward, which was annoying. I resolved that. But one kid his foot was starting to step forward, and he started crying. I mean, he was crying. He was holding back tears, holding himself back from walking forward. And I said, Henry, what's up? And he said, I want to quit, but I don't want to quit. But I want to quit, but I don't want to quit. I want to finish. He couldn't reconcile everything going on, all the emotions. But it's really hard, but I want to quit. And that's what goes through everybody's mind, adult or child, or right. Like we all want to quit, because the number one motivation for a human being, the number one thing that motivates us, according to those a lot smarter than me, is the avoidance of discomfort. So we want to avoid discomfort at all costs because it's kept our species on the planet as long as it has. Number one thing that motivates us as a species is the avoidance of discomfort, right? Don't fall off a cliff. Don't get frozen in the tundra. Don't get sunburn. Whatever those things are, we avoid discomfort. It's kept us alive. But think about how in this day and age, it weakens us, right? Like, oh, I don't want to wake up that early. It's uncomfortable. Like, you don't even know what's happening. You're about to work out at 7 a.m, right? And your mind subconsciously says, I got to go get a cup of coffee. Oh, I got to check my email. Oh, I got to do this. Your mind is trying to avoid the discomfort of doing the workout. And so you can understand what Henry was going through, right? I want to step forward and I want to get out of this event because I'm uncomfortable, but oh my God, it feels really good if I finish it. And he was wrestling with that. And so when you ask the question, like, how do you get through something like that? What I've been able to do and what I try to teach people to do is to make quitting or make being lazy more uncomfortable than the actual task, right? And to do that, you've actually got to finish a couple of hard things. I spoke to a neurosurgeon the other day, and I like to say that, when somebody's about to quit, don't leave a gap in the brain. Don't leave a gap in your brain. And he said, oh my God, there actually is a physical gap in the brain when you don't complete the task. You actually leave a physical gap.
Mm-hmm.
And he said to these young children, I put them on a Zoom call. He said to the kids, when you finish the tasks, especially between the ages of, let's call it 8 and 26 years old, you're actually laying railroad tracks on your brain in a way that then you can do hard things again, whether you're starting to be an engineer, whether you're getting through a job promotion, a relationship, whatever it is. So the more tracks you can lay in your brain where you've finished hard things, you completed hard tasks, the stronger brain you're going to make sense. Mm-hmm. But I think it's fun that there's actual biology that they can see take place. So, when that person or myself is going through like, fuck, I'm exhausted, I'm starving, I do not want to go these remaining 30 miles on this run. How do you get through it? The same way I joke, the same way you eat an elephant, one bite at a time. Like, all right, I'm just gonna go another 4 minutes. I'm just gonna go another 4 minutes. I'm just gonna go another mile. I'm just gonna make it to that telephone pole. And when I've spoken, to elite athletes, Olympians, Navy SEALs, Fortune 100 CEOs, what I hear is a common thread, which is, I don't want to wake up and go run for 5 hours or bike for 5 hours or row for 5 hours or go run this board meeting or go on this mission. And so what I tell myself, male or female, doesn't matter what profession, but a high performer, what they tell themselves is, all right, I'm just going to get out the door and then I could quit today. Or I'm just going to go bike for a half hour and then I could quit. Or I'm just going to do this and then I could. And invariably you just do it. You get through it. Like, I don't feel like doing 300 burpees. So I say, I'm going to do 30. 30 turns to 60. 60 turns to 90. 90 turns to, you just get it done. So you gotta, sometimes the brain can't handle the whole task at once, right? You got to give it little bits and pieces to get through it.
Yeah, I have this idea that I think a lot of people, they look at, say, Schwarzenegger, and they think he, back in the day, and I think they think he just likes lifting weights. If I liked lifting weights, then I would do that too, but I don't like it as much as he does. And I have this theory, and maybe you've spoken to more of these elite people, elite performers, that I think they all have tricks. Well, I call it tricks. It's like, I don't really want to go for the run, but I put the shoes on. If I put the shoes on, then eventually I'm going to be running. And it just always works. But you can't start with that. You have to develop these tricks through practice. Does everyone have tricks?
You call it a hack. I mean, look, like if you're lifting weights like he was, sorry, all my cadre, or we call them crypteia, for those not watching, the crypteia, which was the ancient Spartan term for those leaders, those drill sergeants. My crypteia are showing up and they're being fed right now. So you're hearing some noise if you're listening to this podcast of I don't know what they're eating. Eggs. You can have a green juice, yes. By the way, Charlie, for those listening that just asked for a green juice, is an ex-hostage current hostage negotiator, Boston PD. So we have a really eclectic mix of cadre. Can I call him cadre? Cadre.
I'm retired.
Retired, of hostage negotiators, a philosopher. I've got a female military, male mountain warfare school, all helping with the hardening. We'll call it the hardening of these young children.
If you want to be tough, you got to do tough things. Be tough.
You got to do tough things to be tough. We got to face tough times. But back to your the question, these hacks. Yeah, you pick them up over time, right? Like these kids. This is the first time. By the way, I don't want the kids to hear this, so I'm going to talk a little low. We have never. I've been putting on events for. A child walked in. I can't say it. You have to remove yourself from the building. I'm saying something that you can't hear.
If we're talking about you.
Close the door all the way, please, sir. In 20 years, I've been putting on events. 20 years. I've had, if you include Tough Mudder, a competitor we purchased, I've had 10 million people come through our system. In those 20 years, 10 million people, I've never put on an event, nor have I personally. No, I have. I have personally. I've never put on an event for anybody that was longer than 3 days long.
Uh-huh.
He's going 14 days. 14 days, and there's a 7-year-old competitor. Okay? There's a 7-year-old competitor. But the reason I bring it up is our species is so fucking resilient. It's so strong.
Mm-hmm.
It's no issue. My 7-year-old has little blinky lighty shoes on. She's competing in this. She's been going 14 fucking days. So they go through this, right? They go through these 14 days of hell, and they pick up little hacks.
Mm-hmm.
And they remember, like,
that they come up with on their own, right? You don't tell them.
On their own. They're carrying a sandbag up the mountain. They're miserable. They want to quit. Look at Henry. Look at the example I gave you of Henry that was crying, and he stepped forward, and he went back, and he stepped forward. He didn't know what to do. He wanted to quit, but he didn't want to quit. And he'll have developed a hack. He'll have developed a way to get through the next tough time that appears in his life. Want eggs? No. You want a green juice? A green juice. That's called a green juice because it's green.
That's a clever name.
Sorry, guys. I still have some of the drill sergeants walking in here. This is a paper straw, environmentally friendly. By the way, Josh, are you the world arm wrestling champion? Third place? Third place world arm wrestling champion. Pretty good globally, right?
Sounds pretty good. Yeah.
Pretty good. Yeah. Big guy. Wouldn't want to arm wrestle him. So anyway, yeah, they develop hacks. And then those hacks work, and then, it's a feedback loop, and then it reinforces, when I just put my sneakers on in the morning, that gets me out the door. And if I get out the door, I tend to go at least a mile. And if I tend to go at least a mile, I tend to do 3. And then it sets me on a trajectory that day where I eat healthier because I did that work this morning. Like, that was interesting. What this little guy, Henry, said when he was crying and quivering was, well, Henry, why don't you just quit? And he said to me, because I've come so far.
Oh, man. And the big smile on Joe's face just now.
Yeah, because he's this little guy, and he was getting it, right?
Uh-huh.
He was getting it. So,
and this is available to anyone, right? This is nothing special about these kids. I would, correct me if I'm wrong.
First of all, let me just say something. These are very privileged kids. These are friends of friends. These are very privileged kids, okay? But yes, it would be available to anybody because that's the kind of guy we are. That's the kind of organization we are. A week and a half ago, I was in inner city Orlando. I was in like the 20th worst city, inner city in the country. And I met with a group called the Give Team, okay? And the Give Team was started 15 years ago because in this inner city, some kids were pushing shopping carts with other children in the shopping carts into traffic. And that was the game they played. Mm-hmm. Who's going to get hit by a car, okay? And a woman was walking by 15 years ago and saw this and said, whoa, time out, and pulled all the kids in and played a different game with them to get them away from doing that ridiculous thing they were doing. Mm-hmm. The kids showed up at her house. She was just a passerby, okay? Just a white woman, passerby, took it upon herself to do this. The next day, the kids showed up to her house. She didn't ask them to. They just showed up. Uh-huh. And so that's when the organization started. She started bringing the kids together and giving them things to do, teaching them life lessons. I was fortunate enough 2 weeks ago to go down there and meet with them. They've had thousands of kids through the program. For whatever reason, they picked up Spartan, these kids. So we support them and try to get them to some Spartan races when we're near them. We happened to be in Jacksonville, so they came to that event. And I spent 3 hours with them. I filmed it. And the difference between these kids I have here on the farm that I'm beating the shit out of for 14 days, including my own children, mm-hmm. and the Give Team kids, those Give Team kids, they don't need me. Like, they're already resilient. They're already tough. There's a video of me talking to one of the young kids down there. We're carrying sandbags. I'm out of breath. He's holding the conversation. Like, this is, you know what I mean? Like, our kids have a nanny. So, by the way, I'd love to have those kids up here, but what they need more of a helping hand and some opportunities. They don't need as much of a beat down as my kids need, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm thinking of the parents of the kids that are there now. If they're like, hey, we want to do something, we got to fix something. You say, okay, pay for these kids from Orlando to come up here.
Well, number one, I would do that. I think we should have by the way, again, this is the first time I'm doing this. I was just doing this because of the virus, and I'm stuck on the farm, and I wanted to do something good. And if I'm not torturing people, I'm not happy. So in a good way. And I think if you interviewed the parents from the Give team down in Orlando, and you interviewed the parents up here, the difference would be the parents up here, 80% of them, they want to protect the kids, right? And Joe's team is too hard on them, and they're not nice, and our kids are going to have psychological damage. The Give team parents would say, oh my God, this is I can't even believe you guys are doing this. Take them, right? Like, so they'd have gratitude towards us taking. They would not get involved at all because they know it would be good for their kids. It would be a step up getting out of the inner city. And so I think we got to train the parents, I guess is my point. I think we got to train the parents.
Yeah, it reminds me of, do you know Lenore Skenazy?
No.
She wrote a story, I think, in the New York Times 10, 15 years ago about how her 10-year-old son took the subway home and she got called the worst mother in America, which she embraced and said, yes, I am, if that's what you say. And so she started Free Range Kids. And now she's got a program where the homework in this program, kids have to go home, ask their parents, the parents are always helicoptering. So they have to go home and ask the parents for something, they have to do something that the parent did when the parent was that age that doesn't involve the parents. So in order for the parents to help, they have to step off. And
Right.
It's things like going to the store and buying an apple or fixing a skateboard or something like that. But they have to do it themselves. And if the parents get in, it messes it all up.
Sounds dangerous.
It's really homework for the parents.
That's right. How to train your parents. No, it's hard. Every generation gets a little softer because the parents were a little softer on the kids. And this is, I wouldn't even say, I'm looking over at Paul, who's one of the parents who happens to be here because we didn't know each other. I wouldn't even say this is free range so much. I mean, we have let them go up and down the mountain. They're going to be going up at night. There are wild, scary animals out there.
Mm-hmm.
There is a bear with some cubs out there we've spotted. And so I guess people listening might say, oh, you guys are irresponsible. That's ridiculous. But like at some point that child's going to turn into a teenager and then into an adult. And they're going to have to climb mountains on their own. And so us protecting them is really not doing them any good, which I think is the point, the woman you're describing.
Yes, exactly. And also I love this, what you're saying and the emotion behind it. You're wearing it out on your sleeve of just, it's like what I'm reading is joy, fulfillment, the service of just seeing someone else bloom. And it's all latent. It's all been sitting there. Like anyone could do this. Like,
wonder if I have enough internet to go outside. Oh, you guys, you can't see them. You could see them, but your listeners can't see them. But I see all the kids sitting around, they're eating breakfast right now. They have a little time off before the actual death race starts. And one of the poems we had them memorize was, come to the edge. Don't come to the edge, you may fall. Don't come to the edge, you may fall. So they came to the edge. He pushed them and they flew. And that's, it was hard for them to understand in the beginning, but I think they're getting that they're about to fly.
Man, and because people look at the stuff that I do, I'm translating all of what you're saying. And I recommend to the listeners, go back and, if you weren't already doing it, listen to everything again. And what you're saying applies directly to acting in stewardship with the environment as well. I don't know if you were keeping track of that as you were speaking, but here's a question I ask a lot of people. Say one person gets on a flight and they fly around to 10,000 miles away. Someone else gets on a bike, puts their tent on the back of the bike, and they go camping 100 miles away. Who traveled farther?
I don't know if I'm going to answer the question well or not, but I found over the last 25 years that when I go to someplace new and I bike it or run it or walk it, it feels to me like I really got to know that place. Like I got to see every nook and cranny. I felt the pain of climbing those mountains. And so the obvious answer for me would be the cyclist. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's much easier, not for you, I would guess, but for a lot of people, it's easier for them to choose Netflix over carrying a rock up a hill. And for most people, it's easier to pay the money and say, look, if I give this airline this money, I'll get an adventure. It's harder to create your own adventure the first time, maybe even the second time, but eventually you learn how to create your own adventure. And then your life has, you could pick adventure, you could pick cultural exchange, you could pick cuisine, you could pick all these things.
You tell me, I mean, for me, my belief, obviously, you know the business I'm in, you know what I stand for. You have to be challenged a bit. You have to struggle a little bit. It just makes it so much more pleasurable. But people don't understand that.
And saying it doesn't quite get it either. Because, I mean, people hear that and hear that and hear that and think, yeah, well, maybe tomorrow.
And what I'm really good, I'm not good at a lot of things. What I'm really good at, if you were here, if your listeners were here with me, I would suck you right up into where I used to lie to people in the early days, 20 years ago. I couldn't get them to sign up for a race, for an adventure with me. And so I would say, oh, we're having a barbecue this weekend. Would you mind? You want to come up? They would come up, and I'd wake them up at 5 a.m. They say, why?
I'm looking at, sorry to interrupt, but the devious smile on your face, I just have to remark on it.
Why would we get up at 5 a.m. for a barbecue? And I said, well, we got to carry the barbecue up the mountain. And I would turn it into, like, before you know it, they did 10 miles and they came for a barbecue. And, you know, when you think about, here's another great one. I have a very, very, very successful family friend that I spend time with, and we go on vacation once a year. And we went to Japan, and they had all these wonderful hotels and sites and everything all set up. And we got taken around by a van, and we were pampered. And there's two things I want to do because I knew Japan well. I lived in Japan. And I said, oh, we're going to go to the waterfall monks, which sounded a little miserable. Like, what do you mean? Well, we're going to get in the waterfall, the ice cold waterfall with the waterfall monks. And then we're going to go to the marathon monks. We're going to do the course, right?
The marathon, yeah.
And those were the two most seemingly miserable parts of that 10 days in Japan. And when you ask that family, my friend and his children, those were the best parts. And we were freezing, and we were lost, and we were running and out of breath, and everything that could go wrong went wrong. And that was the adventure. It wasn't being pampered and taken around to all these sites and everything. So I'm obviously in full alignment.
Yeah, it reminds me that actually you're adding something that I hadn't thought of, that there's all these articles on self-care during the lockdown. And research shows that people are terrible at predicting of what they're going to enjoy. You know, they think that they're going to like watching more and more movies on TV, but actually, you know, volunteering somewhere, they're going to walk away from that feeling much better, even though they don't feel like they want to do that. And exertion is another thing that is, you know what my favorite thing? I love walking by Equinox. Okay, so all my exercises at home. And so my ex-girlfriend had for some reason, she loves yoga at Equinox. So that's the posh gym here in New York. I'm sure it's everywhere. And so I'm like, at the time she was doing Pilates. I was like, I didn't know what Pilates was. So she said, I got a free pass. We can go check it out. So I go do the Pilates, and I'm like, that's kind of cool. Like, I'm like twice the age of the average person there, and I'm keeping up just fine. So now I know and I go to the gym, and then I use the weights there and stuff like that. But now it took me more time to go there and back than I do for like my morning and evening calisthenics. And she pays, do you know how much she pays? It's $240 a month. I haven't paid that much in 10 years. And I love walking by because I feel so superior to them.
The one advantage, thoughts on that. One is you probably find give me a better word. I need a better word than clinical or sterile. But look, I was on Wall Street for a while, right? So I understand commerce and capitalism. And so we, as human beings, become financially successful by selling things to each other. And so if I could create a quote unquote system or an environment, Equinox, a spin bike, whatever it may be, that you're going to buy, I do well. And then I put a little science behind it, and I do better, and more people buy them, and I do even better. Mm-hmm. And so I am more of a Flintstone in the sense that I want people carrying rocks up mountains, right? Sheets of plywood.
A Spartan, if you will.
Spartan, yeah. And yeah, exactly. And I think the fitness that you'll gain from that is even greater. And by the way, studies have been done. When you take somebody off that bike or out of that gym, whatever, and you just do the same exact workout outside, you get about a 20% better result. They don't know why, but you do better outside. And I've seen, to your point, plenty of fit men and women that just do push-ups, crunches, body weight exercise. You don't even need fancy stuff. However, I will tell you that you will go to level 2 on your own in the apartment. Once there's 7 people around, you go to level 7. You don't even, you know what I mean? You just naturally start going a little harder when there's people around. So there is a benefit to having other folks around. The perfect setup for me is climbing a mountain with a bunch of people.
Mm-hmm.
Throw handbags on the shoulder. You're going to go a little faster for the next 10 steps. That's going to make me go a little faster. We're outside. The science says we're doing even better. We're not paying a monthly membership, but not everybody has a mountain in their backyard.
You got me thinking, I know I'm not going to regret this, but I feel like I will. So I'm on the 5th floor of my building, and
Stairs.
and the rooftop is what the penthouse is. I don't know, it's 15 floors. So I got 10 flights up.
Stairs.
So what I've been thinking about doing for a while is taking my rowing machine up to the roof and rowing up there. But now I'm thinking should I just carry it up the stairs the whole way?
Absolutely. You should carry the rowing machine every morning up to 15 flights, set it up, row 1,000, 2,000 meters, whatever it is you do, 5,000 meters, and then walk it back down.
So it's going to have to be 2 flights up because I'll have to take it apart, or 2 trips up and down.
But I love the idea of carrying this thing. I love the idea of carrying it up.
Well, you're going to hear from me again on my report back.
Yeah, I want to hear from you again.
If you like the show, I recommend acting, as my guests do. It works best with someone supportive, your spouse, parents, kids, neighbors, or friends. Learn the 4-step process I do with my guests and describe it in my TEDx talks and do it together. You'll find yourself acting on something you care about, something meaningful. Whether you start big or small doesn't matter. If you care, if it's meaningful, you'll keep doing it. You'll reach big. Eventually, stewardship will feel normal. You'll wish you had started earlier. Second, I recommend donating to help this podcast at joshuaspodek.com/donate. I promote degrowth and stewardship, which no advertiser will touch, but brings joy, community, connection, and abundance to you when you act, and global change in the long run. Help us keep going. That's joshuaspodek.com/donate. Now I'm going to talk environment with you, if that's okay. Is the environment something that's important to you?
Environment is very important to me. For those listeners, we're on a 700-acre farm here in Vermont. And so I love this. I get physically ill when I'm looking at blacktop and cement.
So what do you think about when you think about the environment? Like, what motivates you?
I think we're fucking it up. I think it's a shame. I think the American Indians had it right. And I can't verbalize it well. I think, these young kids, they don't even know the environment. They haven't had an introduction to the environment. So how would they know how to take care of it? Right? So
when you say environment, for some people it's an ocean, for some people it's a mountain. It sounds like, do you have images that come to mind?
It's all of it. It's the earth. And I was in the ocean. I told you I had to go down to Florida. I'm a little concerned with even swishing my mouth out in salt water in the ocean these days. It's just really annoying that we've done this to ourselves in our environment.
So I'm reading both more than appreciation. I'm sensing awe or wonder mixed with there's something that's not so good when you're saying, I don't know if I can put this stuff in my mouth. Like disappointment. It's
disappointment, frustration. I should be able to go in the ocean. It should be as clean as, you know what I mean? Like, Are you kidding me? We did this because we're just greedy and selfish. We are such short-term thinkers. Mm-hmm. That's why I was so impressed with Japan. The Japanese, they're really, really organized. They're obviously a well-populated country, tight quarters in the cities, but you could eat off the floor in the subway. Like, I don't know. There's some things to pick up from the Japanese and cultures around the world that are just clean. Look, if you read Shogun, I understand it's fiction, right? But if you read Shogun, back in the 1400s, the setting was like, oh my God, it's like clean here. Like they take pride. There's the word, right? They take pride in the stuff around them. And I don't know, I could remember as early, like growing up in the 70s, I could remember people driving behind somebody in a car with my mom and seeing people throw McDonald's wrappers out the window. Mm-hmm. I grew up in Howard Beach. There was a dump. I don't know if they called it the Fresh Kill.
Fresh Kills, yeah. Staten Island.
No, then I'm confusing the two. There was a dump near our house in Howard Beach. And the incidence of cancer, my mother died of cancer. Her sister died of cancer. Our aunts died the incidence of cancer within a 15-mile radius of this dump was like off the charts. Mm-hmm. That's just short-term, disgusting, selfish thinking.
So given these memories, these images, these feelings, I invite you at your option, you don't have to, but to think of something you could do to act on those things. And a lot of people, when they hear this, they think, oh, what's the biggest thing I can do? And they disqualify themselves because they think, well, if I'm not saving the entire planet, it's not worth doing. And it's not about the world. It's about acting on your own value. And it just has to be something that you're not already doing, something that is not telling other people what to do, that you physically do it yourself. And it has some measurable effect. So it's not just awareness or education. And it doesn't have to be for a long time. It doesn't have to be big. It can be small. But if you're game for it, then I'd love to have you on a second time to hear how it went.
Yeah, you know what we're going to do? Just what we're going to do, because this will fit in selfishly with something I have to do anyway in my life, so it'll just get tucked right in, is the next 2 weeks we're going to be on the beach. Once these kids get done with this hell 2 weeks, we're going to be on the beach. I think we'll go out every morning and just clean the beach.
You and your family, or you and the whole crew?
As we'll do. Okay.
So 2 weeks. So that sounds like, I always want to make sure it's a SMART goal: specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, time-bound. And that sounds like it is. It's specific. It sounds perfect. Could we schedule a second conversation in a couple of weeks?
Yeah. So I suspect by mid-July, I'll be done with that project, which is great, because what's great about it is I have this big rusty chain, and I could make the kids drag it on the beach as I'm looking for garbage to pick up. So I can kill two birds with one stone.
This is going to be one of the rare occasions when, actually it's not that rare anymore, but people inspire me back to do things. Like, have you had John Lee Dumas on your podcast, the big entrepreneur? As a result of him, I no longer jog, I plug, because he cleaned up garbage off the beach. And it's funny because, like, I was just jogging. Actually, now I'm near Ayala, I saw was on your podcast, and he's got me. I went from minimal shoe running to now I'm just barefoot running. And so now I'm running barefoot, picking up garbage. This is all from the people I talk to. And so now I'm going to be like probably barefoot carrying my rowing machine up the stairs. So I'll report back to you how that's gone for me. Now I was also thinking, I wonder if the kettlebells, if I could just leave them up there, because they can get rained on.
It would be difficult carrying. How heavy are the kettlebells?
The big one's 70 pounds, I think.
Yeah, it's going to be tricky for you. So
is that not healthy? Or
No, it's great. I'm just saying, carrying the concept. I mean, if it were me, I don't want to ruin your life here. Uh-huh. But if it were me, I would carry the rower up, set it up. I would come down and then carry the kettlebells up.
So then I have to go back to the 2 kettlebell workout instead of how many do I use now? I guess I use 3 most of the time.
If you carry the 70 pounder up, that would be incredible. That'd be great.
I'd probably just leave it. Maybe I'll just leave it up there and do my exercises up there. The rowing machine I use once every 5 days. Oh, no, I'm not using the rowing machine that much because I'm doing the outdoor rowing. The rowing machine's bigger in the winter because,
as long as you're carrying something heavy up there every day, it's a win. That's a win.
Oh, this will be really good. I appreciate your inadvertently, or maybe it was intentional, I don't know, but making me think about this. Well, I'm going to have you on a second time. So I feel like I want to pick up here next time.
That's fine.
I'd like to wrap up by asking, is there anything I didn't think to ask or anything to say directly to listeners?
No, I think we covered it. I think we covered everything. I think you and I should focus on how we package this idea of doing hard stuff every day to make yourself better. You'll actually get along with the people around you better, and you make the world a better place. I think you have more gratitude when you do hard shit. I think your day will be better when you carry that 70-pound kettlebell to the top of the building. You get your rowing machine up there, and you're probably cursing me a little bit. You get through it all, and then you jump in a cold shower. You're just going to be more appreciative of everything. The birds become clearer. Everything's going to be better. And so I think we'd be a better planet if we did more of that.
Joe DeSena, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me. See ya.
After we finished recording the audio, Joe picked up his laptop and started showing me through video around his team and the farm. I hit record just in time for him to find Henry, the kid that he talked about making that hard decision. Joe checked with Henry's parents for his permission and go to my site and watch the video to hear Henry's firsthand account of the struggle that Joe described. We all know that struggle. We can all learn from Henry and through his innocence, what most of us have sadly learned the opposite of, which is how to make better excuses. I shouldn't say better excuses that we believe ourselves more. And in Henry, there's this innocence that you hear not making that excuse and deciding to do it. Also, did you notice how fast Joe found a way to act on his commitment? I see this over and over again. People who do things do more things. People who associate leadership with telling others what to do, they miss the active element of leading oneself. Joe does things. Doing things teaches us to do things. We learn how to initiate, take responsibility, find the pleasure in doing things, find the disgust and disappointment in watching life pass us by if we don't do things, waiting for others to do things. And you hear that it's infectious. So you'll hear from me what it's like carrying my kettlebells and rowing machine up and down 10 or however many flights of stairs. So I look forward to hearing about Joe and his rusty chain and picking up garbage from the beach. How many people are bringing a message of joy from what everyone calls saving the environment, but I call the future? Step by step, this podcast is creating a culture of joy, community, and connection around sharing and acting on our environmental values. Again, there's no profit in buying and wasting less, but we'll all love our lives and relationships more when we do. I can use your support. Please donate at joshuaspodek.com/donate. Again, that's joshuaspodek.com/donate.